They laughed the day 10-year-old Tara Morgan said she wanted to fly jets. Not just any plane, but the fastest, most powerful fighter jets in the sky. Her small town was full of rules and quiet expectations. And one of those rules was that girls didn't chase the sky. When her father took her to the local airfield that day, she expected to see planes. What she didn't expect was his quiet voice telling her, "Beautiful machines, huh? Shame they're not for girls." Tara's eyes didn't leave the roaring jets slicing through the blue. Instead of feeling small, she felt something stirring inside her, a fire, a promise to herself. She would prove them wrong. Years passed, but that fire didn't dim. Every morning, Tara woke early, reading everything she could find about flight, planes, and pilots. While other kids her age played games, she sketched cockpit controls on sheets of paper. When her classmates whispered that flying jets was a man's world, she listened quietly but never doubted what she wanted. School was a challenge, but she attacked her studies with relentless focus. Math, physics, and aerodynamics became her friends. She dreamed of the moment she'd strap into a fighter jet and soar higher than anyone had expected. At 18, Tara applied to the Air Force Academy. The acceptance letter felt like a dream coming true, but reality hit hard once she arrived. The academy was tough, grueling, and competitive. Being one of the few women in her class made everything harder. The early mornings, intense drills, and endless study hours tested not just her body, but her spirit. Some instructors doubted her ability. Fellow cadets often made cutting remarks, telling her she wouldn't last. Why bother, they said. But Tara refused to listen. She knew what was at stake. Every doubt thrown her way only made her push harder. The first time she sat behind the controls of a simulator, Tara's hands trembled, but her mind was steady. She knew the theories, but the real test was handling the jet's controls with precision and calm. Day after day, she trained. Nights were spent reviewing manuals, memorizing every switch and dial. Her hard work showed. When her first actual flight in a small training plane arrived, she soared with a confidence that surprised even herself. Still, the whispers remained. Can she handle the real jets? The F-16s. She was ready to prove them wrong. When the news came that she'd been assigned to train on the F-16 Fighting Falcon, Tara's heart raced. This was no ordinary plane. The F-16 was known for speed, agility, and a reputation for being unforgiving to even the best pilots. Many of the male pilots raised eyebrows. Some openly questioned if she could handle it. But Tara didn't let doubt cloud her focus. Instead, she poured everything into her training. Her first time in the cockpit of the F-16 was a mix of awe and nerves. The controls were complex, the engines thunderous. The jet was powerful, responsive, and every mistake could be dangerous. During her first solo flight, Tara felt the jet shake beneath her, a reminder that she was not just flying a machine, but a living extension of herself. When she landed smoothly, the silence in the control tower was telling. No cheers, no words, just a respectful nod. She had earned their attention. Despite that victory, Tara knew the real test was still ahead. Every day was a battle against skepticism, the weight of expectations, and the constant demand to prove herself. But she was ready to face whatever the sky threw at her. Because she wasn't just flying for herself anymore. She was flying for every voice that said a woman couldn't do it. She was flying to show that skill and courage knew no gender. And deep down, Tara knew this was just the beginning. From the moment Tara stepped into the Air Force Academy, she knew she was entering a world that didn't expect her to belong. The halls were filled with young men who had been dreaming about fighter jets since they could walk. They looked at her as if she was an outsider, and maybe in their eyes she was. But Tara wasn't here to fit in. She was here to prove that she belonged, no matter how hard they tried to make her doubt it. The training was brutal. The days started before sunrise and stretched into long nights filled with endless physical drills, academic tests, and survival training. The instructors pushed every cadet to the edge, but with Tara, the pressure felt heavier. Some of her teachers openly questioned her, sometimes with words, sometimes with dismissive glances. She could hear the whispers in the mess hall and see the smirks when she walked by. How long will she last? They wondered. Her first challenge was the physical tests. While many cadets passed with ease, Tara had to fight for every inch. She ran extra laps, lifted heavier weights, and refused to give in to exhaustion. When her legs burned during the timed runs, she told herself the pain was temporary, but the goal was permanent. By the time she finished, she wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she was one of the few who refused to quit. Every drop of sweat was a quiet rebellion against the doubts surrounding her. Classroom hours were no less demanding. The theories of aerodynamics, jet propulsion, and advanced navigation weren't easy to grasp, especially under stress. But Tara's mind was sharp. She soaked in knowledge like a sponge and asked questions no one else dared to ask. Instead of shrinking away from the difficulty, she embraced it. While some cadets tried to bluff their way through, Tara studied late into the night, surrounded by textbooks and notebooks filled with her detailed notes. Yet, the social side was the hardest part. Many cadets didn't just doubt her skills, they doubted her right to be there. During group exercises, she was often left out, assigned the least important roles, or ignored altogether. When she voiced her opinions, they were dismissed or talked over. One evening, after a particularly harsh training session, a fellow cadet sneered at her. "You think you're special just because you made it this far? You're not one of us." But Tara didn't argue. She simply looked him in the eye and said, "Watch me." That moment became a turning point. Instead of trying to prove herself with words, she let her actions speak louder. During flight simulations, she was relentless, pushing herself to master every maneuver. She stayed calm during emergency drills that left others panicked. When a surprise obstacle was thrown her way during navigation tests, she recalibrated faster than anyone else. Slowly, the whispers changed from doubt to reluctant respect. Her instructors, once skeptical, began to take notice. One officer, Colonel Jenkins, was especially tough. He didn't believe in favoritism, but he believed in results. When Tara aced a particularly difficult flying exam, Jenkins didn't praise her. Instead, he said, "You earned this. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." Those words meant more than any compliment. They were a challenge and a promise all at once. Still, the pressure never fully went away. Some days, the weight of expectations felt unbearable. When she made a minor mistake during a training flight, the criticisms were swift and sharp. But Tara learned to turn mistakes into lessons. Instead of breaking under pressure, she grew stronger. She reminded herself that every pilot, no matter how skilled, had to face failure before success. Her resilience became her greatest weapon. She pushed past the exhaustion, the loneliness, and the skepticism. She trained while others rested, studied while others socialized, and flew higher than anyone expected. Each day at the academy brought her closer to her goal, the cockpit of an F-16 fighter jet. By the end of her first year, Tara wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. The same cadets who had doubted her began to nod with respect. The instructors who had ignored her started to consult her during training. She was no longer just a girl trying to fly. She was a pilot in the making. But Tara knew this was only the beginning. The real test would come when she faced the unforgiving skies in a jet that demanded perfection. She was ready to fight for every second in that cockpit. And no matter what anyone said, she was determined to prove that a woman could fly that jet, and fly it better than anyone expected. The day Tara was assigned to the F-16 Fighting Falcon was the day whispers turned into doubts that echoed loud enough to fill the entire base. The F-16 was a legend, fast, fierce, and notoriously unforgiving. Many said it was a plane only the best of the best could handle. And many believed that the best were all men. When Tara's name appeared on the roster, next to the words F-16 pilot trainee, the room went quiet. Some exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Could she really do it? Tara felt a weight settle on her shoulders, heavier than any gear she had ever worn. She didn't flinch. Instead, she packed her bags and headed to the hangar where the F-16s waited like silent predators. The sleek lines, the roaring engines, the smell of fuel, it all filled her senses, and for a moment, she allowed herself to be awestruck. This was the moment she had been working for, but it wasn't a victory yet. It was the start of a new battle. Her first day inside the cockpit was overwhelming. The instruments seemed endless, buttons, switches, dials, and screens that lit up with warnings and status updates. She ran her hands over the controls, memorizing every curve and texture. The instructor sat beside her, his expression unreadable. He was known for being tough, for pushing trainees to their limits. Tara didn't want sympathy. She wanted respect, and she knew it would be earned, not given. Her first flight in the F-16 was nothing like the training planes she had flown before. The power was instantaneous. The jet shot down the runway with a roar that shook her core. Her hands gripped the controls tightly as the plane lifted into the sky. Every second a test of her nerves and skill. She felt the jet respond to her commands like an extension of her own body. But the F-16 was also unforgiving. One wrong move, and the consequences could be deadly. During her initial maneuvers, she struggled to find the balance between aggression and control. The jet was faster than she expected, and every turn, every climb, felt like wrestling with a wild beast. Her first landing was rough. The jet bounced awkwardly on the runway, and a collective sigh rose from the ground crew. Tara felt the sting of disappointment, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she took meticulous notes, analyzing every mistake and every moment that went wrong. Days turned into weeks, and Tara's flights grew smoother. Her instructors started to notice the precision behind her every move. She wasn't flashy or reckless. She was steady and thoughtful. She treated the F-16 not as a machine to be conquered, but as a partner to be understood. That mindset earned her the respect that no amount of words could buy. But the skeptics didn't disappear overnight. Some pilots still whispered behind her back, questioning if she had what it took to fly in real combat. They spoke of the jet's unforgiving nature, of how many pilots had been lost to its power. Tara heard it all, but instead of letting it shake her, she used it as fuel. One afternoon, during a particularly difficult training exercise, Tara faced unexpected turbulence. The jet shook violently, and alarms blared in the cockpit. Other pilots might have panicked, but Tara stayed calm. She adjusted the controls, relying on her training and instincts. Slowly, the jet steadied. When she landed, the base commander nodded with approval. This was the moment Tara had been waiting for. Not just surviving the jet, but mastering it. Her confidence soared, but she never let it turn into arrogance. She knew that the F-16 demanded respect every time it took off. The jet was beautiful and deadly, and Tara was learning to navigate both its power and its dangers. Each flight was a lesson, each landing a victory. The whispers had begun to change. Some once doubtful pilots approached her for advice. The instructors, who had been skeptical now, included her in advanced training sessions. Tara wasn't just flying the F-16. She was becoming one of the best pilots on base. Still, Tara knew the real test was yet to come. The sky was unpredictable, and the true measure of a pilot was how they handled the unexpected. She prepared for the day when she would face more than training exercises, when she would have to rely on every bit of skill and courage to come home safely. But no matter what the future held, Tara was ready. The woman they said couldn't fly the jet had already taken the controls, and she wasn't letting go. The day Tara was sent on her first solo mission in the F-16 was a day she would never forget. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with soft oranges and pinks, but inside her cockpit, the world was all business. The jet hummed beneath her, a beast waiting to be unleashed. This wasn't just another training flight. It was a test of everything she had worked for, every long night, every grueling drill, every doubt she had crushed beneath her boots. As the runway rushed beneath her, Tara's heart beat steady. She felt the familiar surge of power as the jet took off, climbing higher into the sky, faster than she had ever flown alone before. The clouds seemed to part just for her as she cut through them, a silver streak against the vast blue. But this flight was different. As she reached cruising altitude, a sudden jolt shook the jet violently. The engine on her right side sputtered, then began to lose power fast. A cold wave of panic threatened to rise, but Tara pushed it down. Years of training kicked in. She checked her instruments. One engine was failing, and she was still miles above the ground. Every second mattered. She radioed the control tower, her voice calm but urgent. Engine failure. Requesting immediate landing clearance. The tower's response was terse. You're cleared to land, but runway conditions are tight. This will be a challenging approach. Tara swallowed hard. The runway was shorter than usual, and the jet was losing power fast. She had only one chance to get this right. Her hands moved swiftly over the controls, adjusting throttle, managing airspeed, and steadying the jet as it began its descent. The engine sputtered again, a ragged sound that echoed in the cockpit. Memories flashed through her mind, the sneers, the doubts, the nights spent proving she belonged here. You can't do this, they had said. But Tara was doing it. She was alive in this moment, every sense razor-sharp, every breath controlled. The jet dipped lower, the runway looming closer with every passing second. Her mind raced through procedures she had drilled over and over, her fingers executing each step without hesitation. The landing gear lowered with a click, and she lined the jet up perfectly, despite the shaking and uneven thrust. Smoke began to trail from the failing engine, and the jet's warning lights blinked furiously. But Tara kept her focus. The ground was rushing toward her faster than she wanted, and the runway seemed impossibly short. She pressed the controls, coaxing the jet down with precision and determination. The moment the wheels touched the tarmac, there was a harsh jolt as the jet bounced lightly, but Tara held firm, gripping the controls like a lifeline. She applied the brakes carefully, mindful of the limited runway length. The jet slowed, the smoke thickening behind her. When she finally came to a stop, silence hung heavy in the air. Then, the control tower's voice crackled through her radio. "Excellent landing, Morgan. You saved that jet." Relief flooded through her, but Tara didn't relax just yet. She powered down the engine, heart still pounding, sweat beading on her brow. She had done what no one believed she could. She had landed an F-16 on one engine on a short runway, in a situation that would have broken many experienced pilots. As the ground crew rushed to her side, Tara climbed out of the cockpit, the smoky scent clinging to her flight suit. Her eyes met the faces of the men and women who had watched her land, some stunned, some filled with newfound respect. Her commanding officer stepped forward, voice steady and firm. "That was one of the best landings I've ever seen. You've proven more than skill today. You've proven courage." Tara nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle in her chest. She wasn't just a pilot now. She was a symbol that courage and determination could shatter every barrier. News of her landing spread quickly through the base and beyond. Reporters asked questions, skeptics fell silent, and young girls everywhere found a new hero to look up to. But Tara didn't chase the spotlight. She stayed focused, knowing the sky still held many challenges. That day, she didn't just land a jet. She landed hope for countless others who had been told they couldn't. And in that smoky F-16, with the setting sun casting long shadows behind her, Tara Morgan became a legend. The days after Tara's daring landing were a whirlwind. The base buzzed with whispers and speculation. Some called it luck, others called it skill. But Tara knew the truth. It was more than just skill or luck. It was the result of every struggle she had faced, every challenge she had overcome, and every moment she refused to give up. Despite the attention, Tara's routine didn't change. She woke up early, ran her pre-flight checks meticulously, and trained harder than ever. But the shadow of that emergency landing lingered in her mind. What if next time she wouldn't be so lucky? What if the jet didn't respond the way it had? Those fears pushed her to sharpen her instincts, to learn every possible scenario that could go wrong, and how to fix it. Her instructors saw the change. They noticed how she stayed longer in simulations, repeating the toughest emergency drills until her hands moved without thought. One of them, Major Collins, pulled her aside one afternoon. "You're not just good, Morgan," he said. "You're exceptional. But remember, flying isn't just about skill. It's about keeping calm when everything falls apart. That's what saved you." Tara nodded. She knew the truth in those words. She had learned that flying wasn't just about speed or power. It was about control, precision, and the ability to face fear head-on. Every time she climbed into that cockpit, she faced more than just the plane. She faced herself. The base slowly began to change, too. The men who once doubted her started to offer nods of respect, sometimes even words of encouragement. Tara noticed those moments, but didn't let them distract her. Her focus remained on the sky, on mastering every maneuver, every landing, and every emergency drill. Still, not everyone was convinced. There were still whispers that she was an exception, a lucky one, who got by despite the odds. That made Tara more determined. She wanted her success to be undeniable, not just a one-time story. She wanted to be the standard, not the exception. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Tara received a call that tested everything she had learned. A training flight had gone wrong. Another pilot was stranded miles away, struggling to control his jet after an engine failure. The base scrambled to respond, and Tara was asked to lead a search and assist mission. Her heart pounded, but she didn't hesitate. She climbed into her F-16, ran through her checks, and took off into the fading light. The sky was darkening fast, and the pressure was intense. She wasn't just flying for herself anymore. She was flying to save a life. Hours passed as Tara searched the vast skies, coordinating with ground teams and other pilots. Every minute felt like an eternity. When she finally spotted the distressed jet, her training took over. She guided the pilot, giving clear instructions to stabilize his plane. Together, they navigated the treacherous path back to the base. The landing was tense, but both jets touched down safely. Relief flooded the air, and Tara felt a quiet pride swell inside her. This wasn't about fame or recognition. This was about trust. The trust that her fellow pilots and commanders placed in her skills and judgment. That night, as she cleaned her gear, Tara thought about how far she'd come. From the little girl who was told she couldn't fly, to the pilot who had just helped save a life. She realized that the real victory wasn't just surviving the skies. It was proving every day that she belonged there. And she wasn't done yet. The sky still held challenges, dangers, and moments that would test her courage. But Tara Morgan had learned one thing above all. When you believe in yourself, no obstacle is too great, no jet too powerful, and no doubt too loud. She was flying for more than herself now. She was flying for every voice that had ever been silenced, every dream that had been dismissed. And with every takeoff, she wrote a new chapter in a story that refused to end. The tension in the air was thick the day Tara was called to participate in a joint international exercise, one designed to simulate real combat conditions. The base was alive with activity, pilots from allied nations buzzing about, technicians rushing to prep jets, and commanders coordinating complex flight plans. Tara felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just a training mission. It was a proving ground on a global scale. Her F-16 gleamed under the hangar lights as she climbed into the cockpit, the familiar hum of the jet reassuring her. But this mission was different. No simulations, no safety nets. The scenarios they would face were unpredictable, designed to push even the most seasoned pilots to their limits. Tara's mind raced through every procedure, every emergency drill she had mastered. She knew the stakes were high. As the jets launched into the sky in tight formation, Tara felt the adrenaline surge through her veins. The world below became a blur as they sped toward their objective, an area designated as hostile territory. Communications crackled with commands and updates, but the real test was yet to come. Midway through the exercise, the unexpected happened. A radar warning flashed in Tara's cockpit. Simulated enemy missiles were locked onto her position. The squadron scattered, executing evasive maneuvers. Tara's heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She banked sharply, pulling the jet into a steep dive, then rolled hard to avoid the incoming threat. The jet responded perfectly to her commands, but the tension was palpable. Each maneuver was a dance between danger and control. Tara pushed the F-16 to its limits, flying low over rugged terrain, using every bit of skill to shake off the pursuers. The radio was alive with frantic chatter, but Tara stayed focused, blocking out the noise to concentrate on the mission. Suddenly, the unexpected became critical. Her jet's left engine began to sputter, a reminder of the mechanical troubles she had faced before. The warning lights flashed urgently, and Tara knew she had to make a split-second decision. Could she complete the mission with one engine, or was it time to abort? Her training took over. With practiced precision, she adjusted her controls to compensate for the loss of power, managing her altitude and speed carefully. The mission was far from over, and failure was not an option. Tara radioed the command center. Engine failure. Continuing mission on one engine. Her voice was calm but determined. The squadron's leader acknowledged her update, admiration clear in his tone. Roger that, Morgan. You're setting the standard. With one engine faltering, Tara executed the final phase of the exercise, an intense dogfight simulation. She outmaneuvered her opponents, using every tactic and move she had learned. The jet responded like a loyal partner, even as it struggled to maintain power. Her focus was razor-sharp. Every movement counted. As the exercise ended, Tara guided the jet back toward base, the single engine humming steadily beneath her. The landing was challenging, the runway shorter than usual, the jet heavier from the strain, but Tara remained composed. She touched down smoothly, the wheels rolling over the tarmac as the base erupted in applause. Climbing out of the cockpit, Tara was met with cheers and congratulations from her peers and commanders. She felt the familiar mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. This flight was more than a mission completed. It was a testament to her resilience and skill. Later that evening, as the excitement settled, Tara stood alone by her jet, looking up at the stars. The sky had tested her once again, pushing her beyond what she thought possible. But she had met every challenge head-on, proving that courage, determination, and belief in oneself could overcome any obstacle. Tara knew the path ahead would hold more trials, but she was ready. With every flight, she shattered the doubts, the stereotypes, and the limits others tried to place on her. She wasn't just flying an F-16. She was rewriting what it meant to be a pilot. And in the vast expanse of the sky, Tara Morgan was unstoppable. Tara's reputation was growing, but with it came a new kind of pressure, one that no flight manual could prepare her for. She wasn't just a pilot anymore. She was becoming a symbol, a beacon for those who believed that the sky was no longer a place reserved for men. The base command began to assign her more complex missions, pushing her limits further than ever before. Each flight was a test, not just of skill, but of endurance, judgment, and nerves. One morning, Tara received orders for a high-stakes reconnaissance mission along a tense border zone. The situation was volatile, and intelligence needed to be gathered quickly but discreetly. The jet's powerful engines hummed under her as she prepared for takeoff, the weight of responsibility heavier than the flight gear strapped to her body. The sun was barely rising, casting a cold light on the runway, but inside her cockpit, the atmosphere was electric with focus. As the F-16 soared into the sky, Tara's mind raced through the plan. She needed to fly low and fast to avoid radar detection, but also keep her eyes sharp for any signs of enemy movement. The tension in the air was thick. One wrong move could lead to disaster. Yet, in the cockpit, Tara found a strange calm. The jet was an extension of herself now, a machine she could command with precision and grace. Suddenly, a warning light blinked on her dashboard. One of the jet systems was malfunctioning. Navigation sensors were glitching, and communication lines were crackling. Her heart tightened. Without those systems, the mission could become impossible. And worse, she could be flying blind in hostile territory. Tara's training kicked in. She switched to backup systems, recalibrated manually, and focused on the terrain below. Flying over rugged mountains, she kept her altitude low, eyes scanning every ridge and valley. The radio remained eerily silent except for the static bursts that reminded her she was alone out there. Every second was a gamble. The jet's damaged sensors meant she had to rely on instinct and memory, two things she had honed through countless hours of practice. Hours passed like minutes, and despite the technical problems, Tara gathered the crucial information. As she turned to head back, the jet shuddered violently. An engine warning flared up. The same engine she had saved once before was acting up again. A deep, cold fear crept in, but she didn't let it take hold. Her mind raced through emergency procedures, her fingers moving with practiced speed to stabilize the engine. The return flight was tense beyond words. The jet's power fluctuated, and Tara had to constantly adjust her controls to keep the plane steady. Every turn and dive required perfect timing. She wasn't just flying against the sky now. She was fighting for control against a machine that could fail at any moment. Finally, the familiar sight of the base appeared below, a welcome sight that felt like a lifeline. Tara began her descent, the runway short and unforgiving as always. Her hands were steady as she guided the jet toward the ground, calculating speed and angle with precision. The jet bounced lightly upon touchdown, but Tara held it firm, bringing the aircraft to a smooth stop despite the engines faltering. As she climbed out, the ground crew rushed to her side, concern etched on their faces. Her commanding officer approached, eyes full of respect and relief. "Morgan, that was a mission most pilots wouldn't even attempt with those conditions. You've shown courage and skill that inspire us all." Tara nodded, exhaustion and pride swirling inside her. The risks she took were enormous, but so was the reward. The knowledge that she was breaking barriers and showing the world that strength wasn't defined by gender. That night, alone in her quarters, Tara reflected on the journey. The skies had tested her in ways she never imagined. Emergency landings, mechanical failures, hostile territory. But each challenge had strengthened her resolve. The woman who was once doubted had become a pilot who commanded respect not because she demanded it, but because she earned it with every flight. Yet, Tara knew her story was far from over. The skies held more dangers, more missions that would push her limits. But with every takeoff, she carried not just herself, but the hopes of countless others who dared to dream beyond boundaries. And as she closed her eyes that night, the steady hum of jet engines echoed in her mind, a reminder that the sky was hers to conquer. The morning air was crisp and still when Tara received the call. A critical mission had come through. An urgent evacuation was needed from a remote base under threat. It was a mission with no room for error. The weather was unpredictable, the terrain unforgiving, and the stakes higher than ever. Yet, Tara didn't hesitate. This was the moment she had prepared for, the moment that would define everything she had fought to achieve. She strapped herself into the cockpit, heart steady but ready. The jet's engines roared to life beneath her, a familiar sound that steadied her nerves. As the F-16 soared into the gray sky, the clouds thickened, swallowing the horizon. Visibility was dropping fast. Tara knew this flight demanded every ounce of focus and skill she possessed. Her comm crackled with updates. The base was isolated, surrounded by rough mountains, and time was slipping away. The people waiting for evacuation were counting on her. Tara adjusted her instruments, relying on her training to navigate through the dense clouds and unpredictable winds. The jet responded to her touch, every movement deliberate, precise. Suddenly, the left engine began to sputter, an ominous reminder of past battles with the machine's stubborn mechanics. A flash of warning lights illuminated the cockpit, but Tara's mind remained clear. Years of experience told her panic would be her enemy. She quickly switched to backup systems, stabilizing the failing engine just enough to keep flying. The clouds outside thickened into a wall of white, erasing the world below. The runway was a distant memory. Tara's fingers flew over the controls, relying on instruments alone to guide her through the storm. Every breath was controlled, every movement calculated. The jet, though wounded, was still hers to command. Ahead, a narrow valley opened up, her only path to the base. The terrain was unforgiving. Jagged rocks and steep cliffs bordered her route. Tara descended carefully, weaving the jet through the natural obstacle course with razor-sharp precision. The storm howled around her, but inside the cockpit there was only calm focus. As she neared the base, the radio crackled with the voices of those waiting. Fear, hope, urgency mixed in their words. Tara's heart tightened, not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. She knew every second mattered. She made a final approach to the short runway, the jet's engine faltering again, smoke trailing faintly behind. Her hands were steady as she adjusted speed and angle, calculating the perfect touchdown. The jet's wheels kissed the runway with a jarring thud, but Tara held it steady, braking hard to slow on the limited length. The ground crew rushed to assist as Tara powered down the jet. She climbed out, soaked in sweat, but standing tall. Her eyes met the grateful faces of the evacuees, soldiers and civilians alike, who had just witnessed a miracle. The commanding officer approached, his voice thick with emotion. "Morgan, you flew through hell and back today. You saved lives that no one thought could be saved." Tara nodded, the exhaustion finally catching up. But beneath the fatigue was a fierce pride, a quiet certainty that she had done more than just fly a jet. She had shattered every barrier, defied every doubt, and proven that courage and determination knew no gender. News of the mission spread quickly, inspiring not just her base, but people far beyond. Letters of thanks arrived. Young girls writing of their dreams to soar just like her. Tara realized her journey was bigger than herself. It was a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever been told you can't. That night, as the skies cleared and stars twinkled above, Tara stood outside, gazing upward. The vast, endless sky no longer held fear. It held promise. She smiled, knowing her wings had carried her further than she ever imagined. The woman who was once doubted had become a legend. And in every flight to come, Tara Morgan would continue to prove one undeniable truth. No matter the odds, no matter the obstacles, she would always rise.